Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Travel, the only weekly travel podcast which is, in fact, not a weekly travel podcast. Joining me are the usual suspects. That laugh in the background can only be Mr. Chris Christensen. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, but again, remember, the name of the show is This Week in Travel, not Every Week in Travel.
That's never a promise we made. Also, coming to us once again from California, from her daughter's bedroom, Jen Leo, how are you doing?
Good morning, everybody. Doing great. And this is my daughter's desk. We are sharing a desk these days.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your daughter has an office.
Yes,
I don't know
from my
what
daughter's office.
Generation of like her age would be. They're like not millennials, but I think the parents getting their child an office is kind of a new thing.
Well, now, Jen, you or Cora, which one of you has actually blogged more this year?
Exactly. Cora.
Also with us on the show, it's been a long time, but from the BootsNAll Travel Network, Mr. Sean Keener. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm so good, Gary. It's such a beautiful day up here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm glad to reconnect with you, sir.
Glad to have you. Let's get into a couple news stories. I thought this one was kind of interesting, and it's something that a lot of people maybe don't think about. When you go on a plane, if they print out a boarding pass for you, evidently you should never dispose of the boarding pass in kind of a public area. So a lot of times maybe you get off your flight or something and you just drop it in the bin. The reason is that the barcode on the boarding pass, and this comes from, the Clear Minds blog, can be used to obtain your personal information such as email address, home address, and phone numbers.
Really?
Yeah. It's funny because I never throw my boarding passes away. I just kind of hoard them, which is going to make for an awesome episode of Hoarders one day.
Now, do you hoard them for a particular reason? I mean, Gary, I keep them in a folder here until I have a chance to check that I got the miles. Are you just hoarding them because?
Just because.
Just because.
I will occasionally do that, especially if I'm on like an airline for like a Star Alliance airline. I think I was on Avianca or something, and I just, it was kind of a last minute. I gave him my number before I boarded the flight, and I just wanted to make sure. But otherwise, I just kind of keep them around. They don't take up a lot of space.
I think I've left them in the back pockets of airplane seats, junk drawers, in the trash all the time. How do they get the info off of it?
The barcode.
Barcode. Barcodes are a standard format, and so basically you can read the barcode, and what they're saying is they're actually putting personal identifiable information on the boarding pass, which is weird. I suspect it depends on the airline.
I think this is some of the more valuable advice we've given on this podcast.
Well, the standards are fairly low, so.
I'll be honest, if someone had asked me what was in the barcode, I would have assumed it was just like a number. Right, just like a booking number, and that's all it was. I'm amazed that they put more. So I guess the thing is, if you're gonna throw your boarding pass away, just like rip the barcode, or maybe rip that in half. And
where do you buy a barcode reader?
Well, your iPhone can read barcodes.
The
you
naughty,
just have to have the right app.
The naughty side of me kind of wants to look into some maybe boarding passes I find in the airport trash can.
You can get a barcode reader app. Although, I'm pretty sure you can for the iPhone.
Fascinating.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but this was like 15, 20 years ago. There was a thing called QCat.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a USB barcode reader. And this was at the time when people were still kind of figuring out what the internet was about. And the theory is you would put the barcode reader in your computer, and then as you read the newspaper or a magazine, you would scan barcodes for ads to pull up websites.
It was kind of the QR code of its day.
But they gave away this reader for free, and then there were all sorts of hacks you could do. So you could like catalog your CD collection, your book collection, and I remember getting a bunch of these things for free and then playing with it to do all sorts of stuff like that.
I got a quick comment on this. I mean, when I think about the actual risk, Jen, it's probably not that big, right? I mean, you could probably continue to leave them in in the open space, and probably, I don't know what the chances are, nothing would happen. But having said that, I shred anything that has my name on it. I just do. I don't know why. With people getting stolen stuff, I've never had that happen to me, thankfully, but just shred it. I don't keep them.
Sean, have you ever been a victim of identity theft?
No.
Gary, Chris, any of you?
I have, yeah, absolutely.
So
I have too.
Multiple times.
And how did it happen? Did it come through a boarding pass, or?
No. It well, the one that I can think of came through. Someone got a hold of my Social Security number. Don't know how, so it wouldn't have been a credit card receipt or something like that, and opened up a credit card with my Social Security number basically and their address. And so it wasn't until like the third notice that things came to me. They kept sending these bills to this particular address, and they kept not getting paid. And then at some point they say, oh, well, these haven't got paid. Let's go look up the Social Security number, get the address, and you get this bill that's like past due. It's like, I don't know who that is. That's not me.
So I mean, identity theft is a real risk, right? Where does it come from? Who knows, right?
Actually, I've never even thought about this as a travel tip because it happened so long ago. But I once got it. I was on book tour for Sand in My Bra, and I was staying at these cheap little motels across the country, and some of them didn't have credit card readers. Like, it was so back in the day, and they were even farther back in the day that they had to write down your credit card on a carbon piece of paper. I got identity thefted from that, probably just for a few $100. And then I also got one a little less interesting from a particular gas station I went to all the time. Like, there was some kind of strip search something from the ATM machine at my local gas station.
Wow, your gas stations are tough when they have a strip search there. But
well, something that stripped the credit card info off when you put it in the machine.
Well, I don't know if we don't have the story in our lineup, but it was, I want to say, Hilton that just had a huge hack, basically, that got a lot of people's personal identifiable information, including credit cards. These days, if you want to do a identity fraud, you can buy off the dark web like 1 million Social Security numbers at pennies on the dollar.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's just really rampant these days. All of the ones that got stolen from Target.
Yes.
Was it last year or the year before? Those are available for sale.
That might have been me.
Yeah.
Actually, if you want a really good tip, if you have a newer iPhone, so I think it's iPhone 6 and up, and some of the more advanced Android models, using Apple Pay is actually one of the most secure ways you can pay for something, because you're not giving your number to anyone. It has a one-time hash code that it uses. And obviously you have to use your fingerprint in order to be able to use it on your phone. And you can use it pretty much anywhere in the world that accepts it. You don't have to worry about the whole chip thing with your credit card. So not only is it, I wouldn't say it's ubiquitous yet, it's not used in a lot of places, but a lot more are getting it, and it's probably the most secure way you can pay for something without using cash.
Gary, would you say that that's probably the case with the Android Pay app as well?
I don't know the specifics, but I think that the transaction mechanism is probably the same.
I'll have to check into that. It sounds like a nice way.
It's similar, but I don't know the differences between them. I'm not.
Sean, you're not Apple.
A good podcast for that.
May I am on a beautiful iMac. I have iPads, but I like the Android phones. Yeah, because it used to be too small. Look at these fat fingers. Just couldn't type.
I think it was Symantec put out something recently in terms of security that there were, and I'm going to get the number wrong, but there was something like 7 known security flaws in the Apple, known hacks and viruses. Of those, you needed to hack your phone to get about 4 of them, and there were 10,000 right now in circulation for the Android. So if we're talking about security, be worried.
Let's go back to that Darknet. Gary, are you not at all concerned that you are even on the Darknet and that somebody could take your ID or name for even being on there?
What?
Wasn't Gary the one making the Darknet target names, pennies on the dollar.
That was
Wasn't he
Chris.
the one?
No, that was me.
Chris.
But,
You.
no, I'm not saying that I'm on the Darknet. I'm saying your information is for sale on the Darknet.
Mm-hmm. And so you're just telling us that information, but you haven't seen it with your own eyes.
I have not gone out and bought your credit card number. That is correct.
Did Al Gore invent the Darknet too?
That's right. Girls.
No, but how safe is it? Like, aren't you a little bit curious? I would like to think, I've actually thought about this recently. I would like to go on it to see what it's like, but I'd be terrified of being put on a no-fly list.
You should be. It's like when people go to one of the black hat hacker conferences. they bring basically a throwaway computer. It's like, if you walk into that room, you will be hacked. So if you go on the Darknet, you're kind of hanging out in a tough neighborhood.
There is a TV show that I could put on my binge list called The Darknet or something like that. So I could watch it virtually through on demand instead of going on there and risking my my future.
I think you'll be. Most of these things are just like IRC channels or stuff like that, and there's no particular internet. It's just different places you can go.
Is it all porn and drugs, or is there anything?
Well, and credit card numbers.
Legal on there? Is there anything that might be mildly interesting to somebody who doesn't want to break the law?
You want to be an ISIS bride? I'm sure that can probably be arranged.
I think we've veered away from travel here.
All right,
let's
I'll get a bad review and then we'll move on.
ISIS bride.
This next news story is of particular interest to Jen. You can no longer take naked selfies at Angkor Wat.
We've done this news item before.
No, the news item was people getting arrested. Now they have formally put up signs saying you have to keep your clothes on, that you cannot take, because maybe that was a loophole. Maybe they, without explicitly saying you had to keep your clothes on, people are trying to use it. But now they actually have signs up. This is on Yahoo Travel saying cannot take naked selfies.
My disappointment is I'm going to be in Angkor Wat in April, and I guess I missed the opportunity. So.
Okay, but so in the article, it says last winter, 2 Arizona sisters were arrested, fined, and banned for pulling their pants down and mooning the sacred temple complex in Cambodia.
Doesn't it make you proud to be American?
Moving on.
Actually, proud to be American. Did we talk about that China as a country has a list of travelers who have shamed their country and therefore banned from travel?
We just did.
We've had that story around. Oh, here it is. It's actually in the list. It's the story number 15 that I sent over this week. We hadn't highlighted it, but they actually have a national list of people who have done stupid things like this. Apparently, it's not just Americans. The only difference being they named 5 tourists for bad behavior, and said they were working on a possible flying ban. Basically, if you are Chinese and you go moon the sacred temples in Angkor Wat, you might actually get banned from the airlines. I want one of those. Can we get one of those lists?
So you can still travel by train?
So how do they enforce that? Do they just take away your passport?
The advantage of being a totalitarian government is that you can do those sort of things.
How do they enforce it?
We just put them on it. We have a no-fly list. We just don't put people on for being stupid.
Are you sure?
Well, probably.
I'm not so sure about that. I think we can get on there for any reason that they think it's the way they don't want you there. I mean,
my son was on the no-fly list for a while, or at least he was on a list that he was 12, maybe 10 years old, and basically every time we went to the airport, they took him aside for special security because apparently his name matched someone else's. 10 years old, but an enemy of the state.
So if for some reason one of us got on the no-fly list, could we buy our way off of it on the Darknet?
I'm going to say no.
I think you have your research assignment, Jen, and we'll be looking forward to a report on the next episode of This Week in Travel.
Moving on.
Boeing has filed a patent, this is on Travel and Leisure, for something they're calling the Cuddle chair. Now, you hear Cuddle chair and you're thinking, oh, how nice. Maybe you can cuddle with someone in first class on a lay-down seat. No, 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 no. This is the most deceptive name for a seat. It's a backpack sort of thing that you wear in your front, but you attach it to your seat back so you can kind of lean forward as if it was like a massage table with your face in a hole in it. And there's nothing cuddly about this at all. I don't. Would you guys use this?
I've actually used something like this. If you look on Amateur Traveler within the last 20 articles or so, there's an article about falling asleep on planes, and I tried out something that was a Kickstarter somebody did that was a sleep mask, but it was a sleep mask with really long things that you tied yourself to the seat, so you could kind of lean forward into the mask. It's it's not completely crazy. I would have to say I'm still just going to get a window seat and lean on the window, but I tried a couple different devices like that were supposed to let you get to sleep easier on a plane, and this is in that range.
I don't think I'll be using it either, Gary. I mean, it's just the photo and / video. Hearing some background noise. Is that me, guys and gals? Okay. The photo looks to me like they're sitting upright, not even leaning forward. So for that to be effective, I think you have to lean forward, but you're already running into the seat in front of you. So I'm with Gary. This looks a bit absurd, but some of these big companies, they just file patents for all sorts of things, don't they? Just in case they come up with an idea that might work.
The photo also shows enough legroom that you could actually cross your legs. So this is an artist's rendition. It's kind of like the movie version of a flight. If you've ever seen an airplane fuselage, and in a movie, it's not the same as being there in person.
I would use it at least once just so I could take a picture of myself using something called a face relief aperture. a head cushion pulls out of the top of the pack, creating a face relief aperture.
Well, I will say after writing this recent article about falling asleep and trying out these different devices, you will at least amuse your seatmates. So,
speaking of amusing your seatmates, Delta flight recently had a passenger with a emotional support pet. The pet was a turkey. Like gobble gobble, Thanksgiving, presidential pardon type turkey. And there were some people on the plane that was taking pictures of it. They put it up on Twitter, and evidently this was some licensed therapist said that you can have an emotional support turkey. Do you think this is kind of going too far? I mean, I think most people could see a dog or a cat or maybe even a pot-bellied pig, but a turkey? They're not small animals.
Well, when it gets to emotional support ostrich, we've definitely gone too far. I'm not sure about.
I'd get a falcon or some sort of raptor, some bird of prey that could fly around. And just like you want a beverage from the beverage cart and it's not nearby, you could just go and get it for you.
So if you were sitting next to this person and their therapy turkey, how could you request to get a seat change?
I don't even know if you'd have to. I think the flight attendant might take pity.
Because it would be loud. Wouldn't it be loud?
Probably. I mean, what's the next thing? A boa constrictor? Is a therapy pet or a poisonous snake? I don't know.
Well, ferrets, reptiles, and hedgehogs are also on the approved list.
I actually wouldn't have a problem with a snake so much. You could put a snake in a box or something. Turkeys and birds, they just crap over everything. It's not like you can train a turkey to go poop in a sandbox or something. It just seems like a horrible idea for, even if some therapists actually did this, I think there has to be some sort of limits of, what sort of animals you're going to allow on flights. Not a turkey.
Speaking of turkeys, we should hear more about what Sean's been up to.
I like that I'm classified as a turkey. Well, it's been a few years. Yeah, I think last time I was on was in 2014, so in the fall. So basically, Chris, Gary, and Jen, we've been working with Airtrex, the company that we acquired in late 2013, and just streamlining our operations. And probably from a consumer standpoint, I'm just focused on how do we get a gap year or an around the world trip on every person's resume. To me, it's like that. I want it to be as ubiquitous as a college education. I think you have kids in college, Chris?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, they're out. But I mean, I want it to be. We're working on how do we make this as much of a normal part of life as going to college, because it's that valuable to get out of your hometown, go see the world. Obviously, Gary, you're on I don't know, I think you're still traveling, but you're on a never-ending learning quest. And
he just got an apartment, but yes, he has been.
Yeah, I did hear that. I'm curious to hear more about that. But yeah, that's what we're working on, and I'm starting to support. We set up a nonprofit organization called the Travel Access Project to help do that, and we're just, we already send about 96% of the people that come to us, we send them to our competitors and other places because we really want them to take a trip like this. Whether they do it with us or not, I don't even really care. It just, so that's kind of what I've been focusing on the past few years. Go ahead, Jen.
How are you letting people know about this travel access project? Are you speaking at high schools?
Not yet. Not yet. The first draft of it, and I'd be interested actually to get some feedback from both Gary, Chris, and you, Jen, is we want to build an open source project on the site that builds travel curriculum for families, young people, old people, so that they have, and then start to tie it in with universities to help them get college credit. So I'm seeing it kind of like a Wikipedia for travel curriculum. Yeah, I'd love to, as we get it rolled out. It's not ready yet, but the site is up and you can sign up for an email thing in the short term. So
what's the URL?
TravelAccessProject.org.
I think one of the biggest barriers in the U.S. is the cost of college. That basically, by the time you finish college, you or your parents or somebody, could easily be a couple $100,000 in debt. It's just.
That's why this makes so much sense. I mean, if we say it costs about $20,000 a year to travel around the world, you can do it for cheaper, you can do it for more expensive, and in many cases, that is a heck of a lot less expensive than a university education. And as online learning platforms grow and grow and grow, is it worthwhile to spend $30,000 to $50,000 a year for 4 years to go to college? Maybe if you're going to Stanford and you're an engineer, but if you're a liberal arts guy like me, I don't know. What does USC cost today, Jen?
$300,000. I heard.
Right. I mean,
some people that are looking for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting out of, is it getting out of hand is a question that that we ask ourselves. And I have young children; they're not there yet, but I definitely want them to travel around the world as part of their education, because we've helped probably, we say about 100,000 people do it the past 20 years. And there's no one that regrets it, and I haven't done a longitudinal study yet, but the benefits appear to be quite good. Not just because it's fun, but people come back and earn more money because they have just a different view of the world. I'm not saying that they're better, but Gary, look at what you've done with your round the world trip.
Well, Sean, with your data from Airtrex, for your clients, what are the numbers in terms, or percentages in terms of maybe youth travel versus retirement travel versus everybody in between? Like, do you see a lot of people who are buying your Airtrex tickets that have just graduated college and they're going on that traditional round the world Europe backpacking trip, or are they retirees who have just quit their jobs and they're ready to hit the road? Who are the bulk of who's buying the Airtrex tickets?
Right. Well, Airtrex and BootsNAll has an automated product called Indy. We see it's across the board. There is no major group, though. We will say that the 25 to 45 is still probably the biggest group, and we'll see people that sell their companies, like Gary, that do this sort of travel. We see people that right after they get divorced, right after their kids graduate from college, right after they retire, or sabbaticals. We're seeing definitely a big movement in the sabbatical world. Have you guys heard about the group called Remote Year?
No, what's that?
So super cool company that we're actually doing the ticketing for. It's remoteyear.com, and they take a group of 70 people around the world, and it only costs $27,000 a year. That includes accommodation and airfare. So it's basically a group of digital nomads traveling together, and the company takes care of the itinerary and where you're going to stay, as well as a Wi-Fi hotspot place for everybody to work. And they're growing like crazy. And just this whole idea, wasn't even possible probably really 10 years ago. And there's just more and more people that are integrating their work lifestyle with the travel lifestyle. So I just think that.
Do you have to travel with the same group, or are they just setting up your
Yeah,
stay?
you're going with a group of 70. So, and they provide the accommodation and create a virtual office so everybody can continue to work, because these are professionals that have the ability to digital nomad their way around the world, and they want to be around other change makers, people that are trying to do stuff, so that because you know what it's like working at home, Jen.
Yeah, here are the 12 locations. I just looked it up while you were talking, Sean. Here are the 12 locations they are going to go to starting this June. Valencia, Spain, Lisbon, Portugal, Rabat, Morocco, Sofia, Bulgaria, Istanbul, Turkey, Hanoi, Vietnam, to be determined, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, La Paz, Bolivia, Cordoba, Argentina, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Santiago, Chile.
And I think everybody on this call knows too, just $27,000 a year plus food is cheaper than living in many major cities in the United States. So you get this sort of experience with a group of 70 people, and you're traveling around the world, more or less. What a cool opportunity.
It sounds amazing, but also, you times that by a family of 3 or 4. I mean, are you even allowed to bring kids?
On this one, no. Couples do go. On this particular product, no. This is not for kids. So, but for a single person, yeah. Around with a family, it's a whole different ball game, right?
Hey, Gary, you might want to check this out, because there are some cute ladies who are
Seriously,
going.
I thought Gary may have heard about it already.
You can meet the participants, and it's a lot of women.
What is the name of this again?
Remote Year. Remoteyear.com. They're a great group of people running that operation, and that so far the people are just having a blast, and they're just they're doing more and more groups. So their next few groups are full, evidently, but you can still learn more about it. But $27,000 a year, you think about that, right? Gary, how to travel, probably even cheaper than that. But if for someone who doesn't know, go around, and it takes care of your accommodation. So you don't even have to worry about that, and you get to meet folks that are doing something similar, digital nomading.
Hey, Sean, that partner that you have there, your colleague, is it Jen Miller? Doesn't she do a bunch of road schooling? What if she could start something like Remote School Year?
Well,
for
that's
people that want to road school for a whole year.
That's kind of the idea behind the Travel Access Project, is to at least provide the resources. So, because people do it on their own already, Jim. They don't necessarily need BootsNAll or Airchecks to do it, but we just want more people doing it, not just the Jen Millers of the world.
But when it comes to homeschooling, like, I meet people who are excited, but they know nothing about it. And so I think something like a Remote School Year would be fascinating, because it could give people the infrastructure where they're like, oh, we want to do this, but we didn't know how, and it's just plug and play.
Let's start this company today. What are we waiting for?
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing we should say for our listeners, we have assumed that everybody knows what Airtrex is.
Okay,
sure.
Good job.
Or what BootsNAll is. And
Good
it's
job.
been a while since you've been on the show. So Airtrex specialists in round-the-world tickets.
Around the world and complex multi-stop. And we have about 10 to 15 consultants that can work with you to to plan your trip, and we call it route optimized. So if you're going for in the next 1 to 3 months for a 1 to 3 month trip, we're probably the perfect place to talk to. If you're going for longer, you can still talk to them and potentially get your tickets from Airtrex, but sometimes people want more flexibility, so we're referring people to DIY all the time. So as far as BootsNAll, we have an automated ticket platform, so you can book up to 25 legs anywhere you want in the world. No rules like the Star Alliance, and definitely more value-oriented. And of course, BootsNAll, we've been a content company for 17 years now, so we have tens of thousands of experiences and guides on why would you want to even consider doing an around-the-world trip. So we have a 30-day, 5 courses that are 30 days to help you figure out, do I want to do a gap year? Do I want to do an around-the-world trip? We also have a gap year course for parents for why would you even want to allow your kid or to support your kid. And maybe you don't, right? But we kind of take people through that journey.
Excellent.
Cool. Thanks, guys, for... Yeah, what are you guys up to?
I don't have a round-the-world trip planned, although I did find out from using the data from TripIt.com and a third-party app that somebody wrote that I did do airline miles of 138,000 last year. So
Wow.
It wasn't that I didn't travel enough to go around the world. I just didn't book it that way.
Totally. And when we say around the world travel, Chris, it doesn't have to be exactly around the world. It's just you're going away for longer than 2 weeks.
Right.
Sometimes for a person going on a 3-week trip, that is the biggest trip they've ever been on. Right? Not everybody can go for, what, how long has it been now, Gary? 7 years, 8 years?
It was 3,172 consecutive days that I went without a home.
Yeah, I mean that's a long time, you know, and that's, you know, you're the outlier, you're the trendsetter, but you know, sometimes
I don't know if I'm a trendsetter, but it's become a lot more popular, that's for sure. The number of people, I mean, call themselves digital nomads or even people with travel blogs now has just exploded, and pretty soon I think that there's going to be a Donald Trump in Thailand that's going to want to kick out all the Westerners who are in their 20s in Chiang Mai who are trying to start businesses and stuff, because there's so many people doing that now. But yeah, when I talk to people, I actually think that the high cost of education is probably used to be you could go to school and you spend your freshman year getting drunk, hooking up, going to parties. And you know what? It wasn't that big of a deal because even if you dropped out or something, you're out a couple $1,000s.
Right.
I just looked at the tuition while you were talking of the place I went to school. In the late 80s, early 90s, it was $16,000 a year. I went to Macalester, which is the top 25 liberal arts school. It is now, just tuition is $48,000 a year. Room and board's another 10 on top of that. So you're looking at $60,000 a year.
Yep.
And you can't afford, you know, and most people confuse going to college with being away from home, at least your first year or so. And I think separating those two experiences, learn to be away from mom and dad, get out of the house, go travel, because it's a lot cheaper than doing all this stuff while you're at school. And you might find out you don't want to go to school, because I think a lot of people when they are in high school are kind of put on this track. And it's becoming so expensive, and there are some aspects of college life now which are so ridiculous. Yeah, I think there's going to be a bubble that's bursting in the next maybe 10 years or something with colleges, because we've all gotten this notion that you have to have a college degree, but the fact is, for a lot of things, you don't.
Well, the big difference is not just that college has gotten more expensive, but that it has grown faster than all other costs. So, for instance, for many years, when I graduated from engineering school, the average of your 4 years tuition was about the same as the average starting salary.
Yeah.
That had been true for probably a decade at the time that I graduated. But I, guarantee you that right now the starting salaries, even for engineers, isn't $200,000.
And are the jobs there? Didn't you usually went to get your education so that you could get a higher paying job?
Yeah, in my field the jobs are still there, but It's just that the cost has gone up much faster. The cost has gone up at least 2 or 3 times faster than the salaries.
Yeah, and this economic reason we're talking about may not have existed 10, even 20 years ago like it does today. Like considering to do it around, it almost sounded like a total luxury to go around the world. But now it's like we live in a global economy. You've heard this 5,000 times, but understanding how the rest of the world thinks and that your way is not the only way, that's an education that maybe you have to go get. You can't get it from your computer, perhaps. So, fun stuff. 60 grand, Gary. Wow, that's like 3 years of traveling around the world for a young person.
Or even more than that. I mean, I know people that are getting by on like 10 or 12,000 a year. It all depends where you go, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
If you spend your time in Southeast Asia or Central America, you can get by pretty cheap. If you're trying to, spend your time in Switzerland or Norway, that's not going to get you very far.
Yeah, and that's why we say 20 grand. We know you can do it cheaper. You can do it more expensive too. But.
Well, and what are people doing then for health insurance and life insurance? If you're carrying those kinds of bills in your regular life, do you just not have those when you're on the road, or do you continue to pay them at, regular rates?
I'd like to hear Gary's answer.
Gary, did you have health insurance when you were traveling?
No, I don't think health insurance is actually going to do you a lot of good because there's usually a limited number of places where you can get insurance. It might help if they fly you back to the U.S. or something. But I think the biggest thing is to have travel insurance, and for most incidental things like you break your leg or something like that, an accident that happens to you, it will cover that. If you need cancer treatment or something like that, and you're out of the U.S., I'm not sure what the policy would be on that. I don't think travel insurance would cover it, but you're also not going to be covered by health insurance for most things while you're traveling.
There's expat insurances that a lot of our customers will use, Jen, because they want to have it. As Gary knows, when you're in many countries, the cost of healthcare is extremely reasonable. $6 for malaria medication, if that were to happen. So, I don't know if there's a wrong choice, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I would just pay out of pocket in most places.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's so cheap. You just and we're talking. A lot of these countries have Harvard-educated doctors. We're not talking about some guy in a corner office with blood spilling out everywhere that you're scared to go to. It's totally nice.
Sean, are you headed anywhere in 2016? Do you have any plane tickets yet or any plans?
Besides yoga retreats, which has become a big part of my life to stay totally mellow, is I want to go down to Chile this year. I haven't planned it yet, but I have not been to South America yet, Jen, Gary, and Chris. And I'm going down to Chile. I want to see the mountains, see the ocean. I think of it as California 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that different from California now. I just made it for the first time to South America last year, and enjoyed Chile. Just the brief time we spent there.
Nice.
I was in Chile in October, and it's by far the most developed part of Latin America, I would say, not just South America. Yeah. And I don't think it's like anything 100 years ago. Like I said, it's pretty modern and very easy to get around, especially if you know Spanish, or at least a little bit. So.
Well, I found, the only part of South America I've been to is southern South America, so Argentina, Uruguay, the Falklands, and Chile. And really, I found that with all four of those that the difference between where I live and there culturally, technologically, and such is not that much.
I guess I was thinking more of, I know they're developed. I meant it kind of like the opportunities down there business-wise might be more like California 100 years ago. So I feel like it's a place I would want to invest.
I would say it probably has the best business climate of South America by far. I don't think there's any real question about that.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, do you want to move on to our picks of the week?
Sure. I will go first because since Sean was talking about yoga retreats, I was like, ooh, I wonder what kind of destinations you could go to those. And I found 2 great resources. One is exoticyogaretreats.com, and they have all sorts of yoga-related trips all around the world, and they are inviting you to those and telling you all about them. And then also, Sean, I don't know if you're a subscriber to Yoga Journal, but on their website, yogajournal.com, they have a travel section, and they've got yoga retreats and spas, and there's terrific articles about where you can go for your yoga retreats, whether it's 6 summer yoga festivals you haven't already missed, or yoga retreat, explore and restore in Hawaii, urban detox, plan this yoga retreat at a Buddhist healing center in the Catskills. So if you are interested in traveling like that, there's a whole bunch of different resources for you.
Cool.
And Jen will also be appearing on This Week in Yoga.
Let's go, Jen. Let's go do that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Stretch my belly.
Chris, you got a pick for us this week.
Yeah. So one thing that we've talked about on the show before, but I want to bring it up because one of the things we were talking about was the seat pitch, how much room there were in that Boeing article. And so I do want to bring up seatguru.com again, which is a great place to find out, what are the best seats in the planes. And I bring it up this week because I happen to know that they are launching a new redesign of Seat Guru this week. And I know it because that's what I've been doing. So basically, when you see Seat Guru has changed this week, that's what I've been coding over the last 6 months. So,
Chris, we're gonna have to talk about this next week or the next time we have our show, because I can't wait to see what Oh no, I got my apps mixed up. You're talking about Seat Guru. Darn it! I was thinking about Gate Guru. Well, I hope they give you a job to redo Gate Guru.
Gate Guru is actually run by the same group, but I'm not working on Gate Guru. So.
Well, I hope they give you a job to redo that one.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes for the tool that I was using that sums up your TripIt miles and gives you a great report. I don't happen to remember the URL off the top of my head, but it was very cool to get that report. What?
Save it for next week.
Or next month, depending on when we do a show. Let's not kid ourselves here.
It's not likely I'll remember it by the time we do a show again, so I'll put a link in the show notes for that.
So I started listening to a podcast that has nothing to do with travel, but I did want to talk about this because I really, really got into the hosts, and I love their energy. It's called Can I Park Here? And it's all about the fashion truck industry and people that are getting into business doing that. But being a listener and a fan of a podcast made me think about our listeners, because we actually do have some listeners, but we very rarely get to see them or talk to them unless maybe they show up at a conference we're going to. So I just want to encourage our listeners, please reach out to us. We never talk about how to connect to us, but please reach out to us on our This Week in Travel Facebook page. And just, if you want to say hi or you want to get a conversation going, please do. I'd be open to that.
Jen, speak for yourself in terms of we never get to spend time with our listeners. When I'm going to Cambodia in April, I am traveling with listeners of Amateur Traveler.
Amateur Traveler, but not of the people that are listening to This Week in Travel.
Well, there is a great overlap between the two, but I'm basically going with listeners of the show. So.
Okay, I will affix that statement and say, if anybody wants to talk to me, if any of our listeners want to talk to me, reach out to us on our Facebook This Week in Travel page, and I would be more than happy to connect with you.
Yeah, Jen, I never really told you guys, but the only reason I wanted to start this podcast was as a dating service for myself, and it's worked wonders. So, well, we don't need to record as much anymore. Sean, you got a pick for us this week?
I do. Jen, you're just awesome. I love how you communicate. My pick of the week is a series of articles that we researched and published this month at BootsNAll, and the one in particular that, if you could put in the show notes, is the 10 best value locations for U.S. dollar travelers in 2016. And I think everybody on this call knows that the U.S. dollar has appreciated dramatically in the past 12 to 18 months, creating specials around the world. It's cheaper for U.S. dollar travelers to travel to Russia, Colombia, South Africa, Brazil. Even Canada and Australia are significantly less expensive on a dollar-to-dollar ratio than it was 12 to 18 months ago. So we did this for the American dollar, which that'll be in the show notes, and then Canadian, Australian, and Euro travelers. So it's a lot of fun. At BootsNAll and Airchecks, we want to, give as much value to our readers and travelers as possible, and where you go can make a pretty big difference when your dollar is in a point of strength like it is today. So it's a lot of fun.
Sean, how do you break down the destinations on that list? Is it based on last year compared to this year, or how does it work?
Yeah, we based it on the U.S. dollar low, which was in the more or less from a basket of currencies perspective, the fall of 2014. So about 12 to 15 months ago. And it depends on the exact city location as well, because the bigger cities may not have as much of a difference. But yeah, we just looked for value locations. Like some places like Nepal, it hasn't changed that much, but after the earthquake and whatnot, they could definitely use some more tourism, and it's just always been a value location. It hasn't really changed, but places like Europe are more economical, let's just put it that way, for U.S. dollar travelers today than it was definitely 2 years ago.
Oh, you know what, Sean? I'm bringing it up right now. 10 of the best value locations for U.S. dollar travelers in 2016.
Yeah. And we have, as you can see, linked up there, Canadian, Australian, and Euro dollars as well. So we had a lot of fun producing that, and our, our readers and travelers are, it's just another lens to look through when you're planning either one trip or, a trip like an air trek that might take you around the world. It's something to consider.
Well, what I didn't know is you've been doing this since 2008, and you give the link to show what the previous ones were.
Those weren't value destinations. We used to just do past editions of our top indie travel destinations. This year we did it from the context of currency. So every year we kind of changed to not just do what are our top 10 places to visit, boring. This year we're like currency. Last year was data, based on data. So we're just every year switching it up, looking at it from different perspectives to keep it fun and interesting for us and our readers.
So what destination was most interesting to you?
For me,
was there any destination that sort of jumped off the page at you and went, wow, I didn't know that one had such good rates. I want to talk about that. For me,
it's Russia, just to be, but not everybody wants to go to Russia, right? It has the appearance of a potential scary place. We still send quite a few people there. But just to be 50% off year over year is significant. I was actually kind of interested in what Gary thinks from a value destination standpoint. Does he choose his locations based on any of these currency? You mentioned Southeast Asia is a place that you can just float around for a year for 10, 12 grand, which you can. But I'm wondering if he makes those decisions based on buying power of his dollar.
Not so much anymore, and not so much right now, because everywhere is pretty much a good deal.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea, 2 years ago this time, I was in South Africa, and it was 11 rand to the dollar, which was like an all-time low for the rand. And right now, it's 16.5 rand to the dollar. The Aussie dollar.
South Africa's on his list.
Yeah, South Africa made it. Yeah.
I was in Australia in 2011, I remember, and it was over. It cost like $1.05 to buy an Australian dollar, and now it's 70 cents.
Yeah.
So, and Australia is a pretty expensive place. So I would actually, while the U.S. dollar is kind of appreciated against everything, if you really wanted to take advantage of it, I would highlight the places that tend to be the most expensive, like Australia or Canada.
And those made our list. We're 100. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how, because Australia was kind of sick expensive 3, 4, 5 years ago, and even New Zealand. It's not on the list, but it's definitely better value now. So Gary's spot on. Yeah, good call to focus on expensive destinations. In Europe, I would put in that expensive destination. I don't usually love going there because it's just, your dollar doesn't go as far. Now, it's, if you really want to go, it might not be a better time than now.
Yeah,
I'm
the
a
British
Europhiles, but you're right. Is the euro right now? I mean, it's still going to be more expensive, for instance, to go to any place in the eurozone than, we were in Bosnia and drove half a day to Dubrovnik, and dinner got 5 times more expensive. But still, as Gary's saying, much cheaper than it was 2 years ago, or much cheaper potentially than it will be 2 years from now.
Who knows what the future holds exactly?
I mean, right now Japan too. Back in 2011, it was like 75, 80 yen to the dollar, and now it's up to like 120.
Big difference.
So
Japan, though, I don't think is going to get out of its economic malaise anytime soon. They've got more structural problems, so I would suspect that 2 years from now you'll still see that in Japan.
and a great tip, if you want to convert currency, Google will let you do it right from the search bar.
Unbelievable.
Convert X, one US dollar to Canadian dollar, and it will just, give you the current exchange rate. It's a very
you don't even need the word convert there.
You just write USD to CAD, and it pulls up a box, and you type in your numbers. It's like Google is so rad.
Very cool.
Sean, I saw Canada was on your list.
Yeah.
And if we have any listeners in Southern California, my husband just went to Vancouver, and I had no idea flights were so cheap from down here. I think he went LAX to Vancouver, and flight prices were in the range of 180 round trip to in the 180 to 240. I think he might have bumped up just a tiny bit to get a better hour, but they were as low as 180 round trip from LAX to Vancouver. And then he jumped on an Airbnb for, it was under 100 a night. It was like $60, 50 or $60 a night. In a one-bedroom apartment that was really near a cool street. I don't know what the street was
the
called.
deals with some of the airlines are absolutely sick now with low fuel prices. They're full in occupancy, and then
Canada's had bad airport taxes, such that I had an engineer who worked for me in Ottawa, and when he would fly to Boston, he would drive across the U.S. border to any podunk airport and fly from there just because the airport taxes were so much higher in Canada. So it's interesting that he was finding that good a deal because even with the fuel surcharges, take a look at how much of your ticket next time you buy an airline ticket is taxes. And I know the ticket that I'm doing into Saigon and out of Bangkok, I think half of it was taxes. So that's not going to move when the fuel goes down.
We just published a deal on Airtrex. I can't even believe it. It's $1,600 around the world.
For which hubs, Sean? Which hubs?
Where is this? I think it had Sri Lanka and London, New York, Delhi, and then back to New York. So it was only 5 or 6 stops. But I mean, I don't even know how.
But you got to go to all those places for the price of a round-trip ticket to Europe in the summer.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that's why it's so sick. Now, obviously, there's certain times a year that doesn't work. But my airfare product guy is like, Sean, I said, can I really put this out there? I want to make sure it's legit. He goes, he's crazy about making sure it actually works. He's like, yep, there's lots of times where it actually works.
Well, and in terms of cost to Europe in the summer, if you're thinking about going to Europe in the summer, please do check out WOW Airline and Norwegian.
And Iceland Air. And Iceland Air. Isn't
we stop over in Iceland, yeah.
More than WOW. But right now, before the summer, I think you can get to and from Iceland from LA, from the East Coast for $99 each way. From the West Coast for, I think it's $199.
Is that plus tax or just plus luggage?
No, that's well, I don't know about the luggage fees. Check it, and don't forget to look at the luggage fees. I've got a hard stop, unfortunately, so we need to start wrapping up.
I gotta do my pick this week.
Yeah, I was going to say we haven't heard from you yet.
So I just got me the brand new, fancy, top of the line, sleek Kindle Voyage from Amazon. Ooh. And if you're listening to this in audio, you obviously can't see it. But the cool thing is, the new case that they have, they have this thing called the origami case. So it folds over and covers the screen, but when you fold it back, it will fold and actually let you create like a little stand that will hold it. So it's kind of neat. So if you get a brand new Kindle, and I highly recommend it, the new Voyage, it has excellent battery life, excellent screen. I honestly don't know what they can do to make it better because it's pretty good as is. But get one of these cases, and I'm going on a really long trip in about 3 weeks. I'm heading out to India, and Kindle is always part of when I travel because it's a great way to suck up a lot of time when you're on a plane.
Gary, you read?
Eyes read good. Why do you think me no literate?
I don't know. You never recommend a book when we're on doing our tips.
That's because most of the things I read are like history or things that deal with like science and whatnot, and probably just of not a big interest to most people. I've kind of learned that the hard way in my life, so better to just not talk about it.
The last book I finished was The History of the Battle of Waterloo, so we are kindred spirits there.
Actually, I just finished one. It was about I've read several biographies of Genghis Khan and the rise of the Mongol Empire, and I'm actually going to be going to Central Asia in July. So I'm going on a trip with G Adventures. I'm going to Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, and I'll be going along the Silk Road, and really looking forward to that.
If you're interested in that history, now Gary, I know has heard this, but there's also a hardcore history 4 or 5 part series on Genghis Khan that was very good.
I would like Gary to change the name of his personal podcast to Gary Stan during the time you'll be traveling there.
That might be the new podcast I do. All right, let's start to wrap things up. Chris, what's new in the Amateur Traveler this week?
We did a show last week on Guizhou in China, and next week will be the 500th episode of the Amateur Traveler.
Congratulations.
Wow, that's so great.
500th episode. I think we really did 500 a couple weeks ago, but
Jen, where can people find you online?
Well, let me just give a plug for myself and Gary. You can find us online this week at the U.S. News and World Report travel site, where we were quoted in 6 ways to upgrade your trip with technology in 2016. And last week and this week, I have a particularly good web buzz on the LA Times travel site. So last week was sweetness.com, and this week I'm not even going to tell you, but it might be my new favorite app of the year so far.
Sounds good. Sean, where can people find you online?
There's 2 places, Gary, both airtreks.com, AIRTREKS, and BootsNAll.com, BOOTSNALL.com.
And as usual, you can find me at everything-everywhere.com and on your favorite social media platform, except for Snapchat, because screw Snapchat. So until next time, make sure to get outside and check out airtreks.com for your next flight around the world.